if you've got one device and it can get pinged by three different places or three different cell phone towers, you can tell where that device is by measuring the distance from tower A, the distance to tower B, and distance to tower C, right? So you can figure out exactly where that device is in space and time. Similarly, with these microphones, or they call them acoustic sensing devices, I think, you can triangulate a shot fired.
History is riddled with unexplained events. You can turn back now or learn the stuff they don't want you to know.
Hey guys, I'm gonna go by Chief. Let's go with that. So I was watching the news the other night and I came across a story that mentioned a company by the name of Shotspotter. I'm not sure if you guys have heard about this company before, but what they do is they place microphones, 20 to 25 microphones per square mile in a city with the intent of identifying, locating gunshots. My worry is who has access to those microphones and what are they listening to when there are no gunshots? Found a report by the ACLU that's pretty interesting. Figured you guys would be interested in it because it raises some pretty interesting privacy questions. Look out, security state, police state, already here, not incoming. You guys have a great day.
Man, this really rings a bell. I almost think I've heard about it on my my weird Ring doorbell, opted in automatically neighborhood report.
That would actually make a lot of sense.
A lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
Because Shotspotter, if anything, is an integrated system. That's what it's designed to do. Work with all the other stuff that's already in place.
Yeah, it's leveraging existing infrastructure. It wants to be kind of bundled with every other possible surveillance tool used by law enforcement and then, of course, private entities, private companies. The surprising thing here is, they've been around in the background for quite some time. I think they started in the 90s, which might surprise a lot of people. Matt, how would you describe the system overall? Do you think people are happy with it? Do you think it effectively triangulates these sounds? Do you think it saves lives?
Well, the tech is super cool. Let's start there. The Chief describes it really well. A bunch of microphones that are concentrated within a square mile, right? And often there are multiple square miles that have the system in place. And then that means you've got, I don't know, I mean, think about how many mics that is, guys. 20 microphones per square mile. Then let's say if you think about how big Atlanta is, maybe a certain sector of Atlanta, let's just say Midtown Atlanta, where our office is. That's several square miles. Now, if a gunshot occurs anywhere within that grid system, each one of those microphones is going to pick it up because of the nature of the loudness of a gunshot. And just like triangulation, the way it works with GPS, if you've got one device and it can get pinged by three different places or three different cell phone towers, you can tell where that device is by measuring the distance from tower A, the distance to tower B, and distance to tower C, right? So you can figure out exactly where that device is in space and time. Similarly, with these microphones, or they call them acoustic sensing devices, I think, you can triangulate a shot fired. That's really cool. I think that's neat that you can do that. It's all about the application of what are you using it for. And in this case, it seems like it's being used for a really good thing. Detect when shots have been fired so that first responders, right? You're talking fire, you're talking ambulance, even police can show up to that place where shots were fired and hopefully help somebody who's been a victim of a gunshot, if that's the case. Or and this is the big selling point for Shotspotter, you guys, to recover ballistics. So recover the shell casings for a crime that's been committed, i.e. shooting a gun in a city.
I got to say, yes, fully agree with you about the potential there to save lives or to bring justice to victims of a crime. However, one of the issues is that Shotspotter doesn't leave this location just to the technology. Apparently, they also have modified alerts at the request of local law enforcement, and their calculations have not been independently tested, at least as of 2021. So there are opportunities for some nefarious things to occur, or some certainly not above board things to occur. Why did I say not above board? Below board things to occur. It sounds weird.
Whichever, some distance from the board. Another thing too is a lot of maybe not a lot, but some other cities like Chicago that have used this technology have not renewed it because they said they didn't really have the data to back up that it was successful. And I was going to sort of make a bit of a callous point where it's like, isn't hearing, going to the idea of it saving lives, going to the area of the gunshots after the gunshots have been fired, sort of like getting an Instagram ad for buying a boat after you've already just bought a boat. Like, you're not going to save the life because the life has already been taken, presumably, or attempted to have been taken. So you're identifying areas of problematic behavior and stuff. And then, yes, I agree with you about the crime solving aspect, because I think one point that a spokesperson for either the police force or the company made was that people in certain neighborhoods that are high crime have become desensitized to gunfire and don't even call the police anymore.
Well, yeah. Okay, so there's a lot there to respond to. The first thing is the alerting police when shots have been fired. Where I lived for a long time in Chamblee, Georgia, there was pretty constant gunfire. You would hear shots fired a lot, but you would also hear fireworks going off at times when you wouldn't expect to hear fireworks going off. And it was very difficult for me as just a regular old citizen who does hear both of those sounds quite often to differentiate between, what's a series of fireworks than what actually was a 10-round clip that just got unloaded. And often it did. But I never once called the police to say, hey, shots have been fired somewhere near me in this part of Chamblee, Georgia. Never once did I do that. And what they're saying with shots fired is you don't need anybody to report shots fired. Their system detects when a gun is fired. And so, like, you literally don't need anyone to report it, which is a really good thing, but is also a really bad thing, right? Mm-hmm. Because now you've got an automated system that is reporting things like that and sending police officers, theoretically, to a very specific location within, I think it's less than 90 feet, like a 90-foot radius of where this shot was fired.
Which is impressive. And it's definitely a helpful thing, has the potential to be so. It has been used, I believe, in many, many court cases by this point. Because, again, the 1990s, pretty long time ago, right? We're talking 32 years ago. So we must assume that they have been working on this technology for the entirety of that time, right? They've been improving it, hopefully, getting it down to that impressive 90-foot radius, rather. But my question, Matt, is I feel like any question I know, you can already anticipate it. We're so on the same page about this. Surveillance. Chief, you brought this up. I love how you said it's not incoming. You're right. The surveillance state is already here. That's why places like ACLU are asking about this stuff, right? Because as I understand, the detectors, once planted, once deployed, they don't turn off. And they're also apparently much more frequent in minority communities.
Oh, yes. They call them high crime areas, right?
But I mean, devil's advocate. I mean, if they are high crime areas and these gunshots are being detected there, is that really profiling? If the data is real, and isn't perhaps it a good thing for those areas to be more policed? Again, now I know, but depending on the quality and the caliber of the police, the people doing the policing. But I mean, I recently watched this movie Barbarian. No spoilers. It's great. Watch it. But there is some social commentary in it about Detroit specifically. And there are some areas where it's hard to get cops out. Because they're running all over the place. So maybe having more accurate data could help divide resources better, perhaps. I don't know.
Yes, because of the accuracy of deployment, right? That can be very helpful. There are so many problems with this, guys. Ben, you pointed out some. Maybe it's worth doing a quick episode on this, spend a good 45 minutes on it, because it's so expensive to deploy. It's $10,000 per square mile just to install the microphones and get them up and running. Then every year after that, it's over $60,000 per square mile to operate. And that has to do with who's listening, which is one of Chief's other big questions. Who's actually listening to this stuff? Well, it's people who are going to work for Shotspotter who get an alert that's like gunfire detected, right? And there is a series of short clips of this detected gunfire, I'm doing air quotes, from multiple microphones. And that person is trained, or supposed to be trained, to be able to detect whether it is actually a gunshot or a firework or something else. If it is a gunshot, what's the caliber that was shot? Is it a fully automatic weapon? Like how quick in succession were these shots fired? And all kinds of other information about it, which then better equips law enforcement when they're going into a situation, right? To have that information.
I want some transparency into how the tech works. Because, I think, we're all interested in, audio processing and, our audio forensics. If there's some sand to the way this tech works, I would be interested. What are they basing this on? If you have a Simply Safe home security system, or any home security, this is not a Simply Safe ad, you have glass break sensors. Those operate on sound. They detect a certain frequency of sound, and then they know that it's not just the cat, scraping the hardwoods or something. I'm wondering how they determine that. It has to just be they have samples and they're matching it up with a waveform, to see if it hits a certain shape. I'm fascinated by the tech, but it doesn't seem like they're being particularly transparent about it. And I guess there's good reason. Could be trade secret type stuff.
Proprietary algorithms. There's probably some machine learning at this point to do a comp, but the idea is that they are having a human element in there, right, Matt? And that's something that Chief is asking too. Essentially, who watches the Watchmen, right? Age-old question, and it's one that usually has less than perfect answers. I mean, even if you just look at the basics of ShotSpotter, you'll see that it's considered quite controversial in places like Detroit, places like Chicago. This is also, I haven't pulled it up here, but I remember ShotSpotter apparently tried to cut off some public records requests at the figurative past, and told their customers how to go about denying or redacting information they had to provide. And that's interesting to me, because is that inherently sinister? It sounds like a cover-up, but it also could just be them trying to protect their processes as a company, and then also protect officers, right? Because if you plan, look, we talked about devil's advocate earlier. Let me take us to a darker place. If someone knows how this stuff works and they, for some reason, want to target first responders, then it's very easy to set up an ambush and just deploy the right kind of ammunition.
I didn't even think about that.
Set up and waiting. I don't think that's happened yet, and I hope it never does. But there are problems.
No, but people have been falsely accused, and I think in a couple cases sent to prison, because this technology identified that shots were fired at a particular location, and then someone was picked up at that location and accused of shooting a gun. So you can imagine, if you really wanted to pin something on somebody, you literally go to where they live and shoot a gun at that location. If ShotSpotter is active, then leave, and now police are going to respond to that exact area of shots fired, right? That's scary to me. That's really scary to me. And as you mentioned already, the ACLU has a ton of problems with this. A bunch of other outlets have a ton of problems with this tech. And they are just open mics, sitting there, listening all the time, 24/7 in your neighborhood, if this is active where you live.